Okay, we're going to record today because a lot of people decided maybe they did not want to give up their 83-degree day to come. No, people had conflicts, and really happy to videotape this. So we'll just wait. We had a lot of people sign up, so I'm going to give a couple more minutes before we jump in. And I think, this is definitely going to be a review for a lot of you, seeing the names that are coming up on my screen here. You're all pretty savvy in terms of testifying and getting to the State House and understanding the process. But there's been, I would say, just a few changes since COVID. So it's good to kind of walk through those. And, just some reminders. And the other thing about giving testimony is that it is very individual, right? So me giving you tips are just my tips, and you are probably going to make a testimony be the most powerful through your own individuality. So these are really just general tips that we're going to talk about today. And then, of course, the process. I had someone ask me the other day after they testified for a bill that was in front of healthcare finance. Well, so when is the bill going to pass? And I felt terrible saying, oh my goodness, we're at the beginning of the session. So these bills have a long way to go before we will see them in front of the governor's desk if we are lucky. So just kind of going over that timeline and everything is important, I think. So we're still bringing on a lot of people, which is excellent. But I think I'm gonna go ahead and share my slides so we can get going through them all and not keep you super late today. Hi, everybody. Thank you for joining. All right. Can everybody see my slides? Yeah, great. Okay, and Kathleen is here with me today too, and I'm going to have her jump in whenever she can, but she's also going to watch the chat and tell me to slow down or answer a question for anybody. So thanks for being here, Kathleen. All right, and for just for anyone that doesn't know me that jumped on today, I'm the Director of Government Affairs and Health Policy for the ARC of Massachusetts. And I also am like the legislative liaison to Advocates for Autism of Massachusetts. So those are kind of my roles that I really spend most of my time at the State House focused on. So today we're going to be really just looking at the most effective testimony and advocacy for a bill that is important to you. And the timing is perfect because we have our top priority bills coming into hearings in the next, few months ahead. In particular, we have the workforce rate increase bill coming up, and that's on June 13th. And we're watching daily, hourly to see when the sign up comes up for that, because it should be up, any day now so that we can sign up and register to testify. But we will be blasting that as soon as it does, so people who want to testify can be sure they sign up in time. We're going to walk through all of that too. But let me just back up a little bit for people who maybe are jumping into advocacy and haven't done it in a little bit of time, or it's new to you. One thing I would say is get comfortable and explore the arcofmass.org /advocacy/bills. And on that site, you're going to see our priority bills that we have had filed with our partners, with our legislative sponsors this year. And, we give a small description of each bill and the bill number. You can click through it and actually read the language of the bill on masslegislature.gov from our site. But it's a good place to kind of, which bills are most important to you? And we do have a really broad platform. So I would imagine that there are some that would speak to you. And of course, we would love for you to support all of the bills and the workforce bills in particular. But also on our site, if you need to refresh who your rep or senator is, you can stay right on that advocacy site, go to take action, and you can put in your name and address, and it'll give you, your current rep and senator. If you do see a bill that you're really interested in, please reach out for the fact sheet. It's really hard sometimes to really get exactly what these bills' intentions are from the blurb and also from the language of the bill, because it can be, kind of legal language. But we break that down on these fact sheets, and we'll give you a little context and, a little background and, the need for the bill. So definitely reach out to me if you want more information. And then I do talk about this a lot, but get comfortable with masslegislature.gov. It's really come a long way. This website is a lot easier to use. It's pretty intuitive. You can get to know your legislator, whether or not your rep or senator is a chair of a committee, just by clicking on them, looking at their bio, looking at some of the bills that they support. And what's important to find out is if they are a chair, they have a really powerful position around our bills. And so being able to reach out directly to your Senate or rep chair of a committee can really help impact that bill's chances of passing. So find out about your legislators. And then another way you can, kind of do some background research is you look at your bill that you're interested in, which you can click on right through from our website. And when you open it up under either print preview or looking at the text of the bill, at the very top, you'll be able to see which legislators have co-sponsored the bill. So you can look down and see, who's the sponsor, who's the co-sponsor, is my legislator there? And if they're not, you can ask them. So I know this is not about testimony, but we're moving along. Okay, so just a little more on the background. Like I said, some people don't understand the process of how long it takes for these bills to actually go from being filed to having an opportunity to, make it to the governor's desk. So each year, every 2 years, bills are filed near the end of January. We've had some exceptions to that during COVID. These bills need sponsors, ideally on both sides. And then they're given a docket number and they're categorized and assigned to a joint committee. The docket number gets people all confused. So don't worry at all. If you see a bill fact sheet or a bill that has an HD or an SD number, it's fine. It's a different number than the final bill number, but it'll still bring you to the bill on the website. Legislators will still be able to find it if you give them the docket number. So don't get too hung up on that. But they do eventually get a final bill number, and it would be just an S and the bill number, or an H for House and the bill number, no docket with it. So from there, the bills need co-sponsorship. So you've seen us put out action alerts to ask your representative to co-sponsor. And then once they're in a committee, they get that final bill number and they await hearing. So hearings start getting scheduled. They've been scheduled now for the last couple months. We've just jumped into our bills being heard recently, and it goes on throughout the session. But bills have to be voted on by the joint rule date, which is beginning of February typically. And so that means that they have to be discharged from their initial committee by then, if they're going to move on. So it is a long process. If you think about it, we just testified in front of healthcare finance for paying caregivers to be PCA and AFC providers, paying family members and guardians. And, it may not actually come out of committee until next February. So that's where, we have to have patience, but we also need to keep up the fight during this time. We need to keep advocating and reminding our legislators of the importance. And once those bills come out of their initial committee, that's the bigger challenge begins, because now we're facing, trying to get maybe prioritization over 1,000 other bills that are in front of either Ways and Means or the third reading or healthcare finance. So there's a lot more to come, but we're really at the beginning right now. We are right at the beginning with hearing dates being set. And so sometimes what the committees will do is they'll group like bills. So they'll take like all the DDS bills and put them on one day in a hearing. So the committees that we typically are going to be testifying in front of are children, families, and persons with disabilities, public health, healthcare finance, judiciary, and many others, actually housing. But we do tend to have a lot of our bills in front of children and families. And what happens is they get kind of clumped together on the same day. So it's so important that we have a big number of folks testifying so that, for the ARC, we don't have to try to testify for, 5 bills in one day. So when those hearings get set, it can be short notice. Like we were given the heads up by children and families that the workforce bill will be heard on June 13th. However, it's not posted yet. So typically we don't get that heads up. So we have to keep watching the hearing dates and be ready. So sometimes it's only like a week and a half notice. So in that case, it's kind of nice that there's a hybrid option, right? You don't have to get a babysitter or you can be in your own home and testifying. Although even with the hybrid option, you have to set aside a big chunk of time because you don't know how long these hearings are going to go, when your bill is going to be heard in the hearing. Or, how many legislators are going to be testifying, which, they go to the front. So it's a little unknown. So you do have to be able to set aside, a half a day, potentially, if you have a morning hearing. I usually say, it could go to 1 o'clock. And for certain hearings, you might have to plan an entire day. And like I said, it can be shorter or longer based on the bills that are being heard. Okay, so the registration process and signing up to testify. So once you're a little more comfortable with masslegislature.gov and you go into the hearings page, joint committee hearings, you'll see each committee will set up the sign up a little bit differently. Most of them have a sign on form that you fill out now. And, it can be a little bit complicated. Feel free to reach out to me if you have any problems when you get on there and you're trying to sign up. I actually had a problem yesterday because I was trying to sign up for transportation hearing, which is also on the 13th of June. And we have one bill in front of that committee called the blue envelope. And I signed up with their form because that's what I always do, but I realized that the form was just for virtual testimony. So then I had to email the committee to say, whoops, I didn't mean to do that. I'm going to be there in person. And they told me, oh, the in-person signups are that day. So you have to get to the hearing room 20 minutes before and sign up. Now that's different than the last hearing I just did, which was healthcare finance, where I was able to sign up online the week before to physically testify in person. So what I'm trying to say is each committee kind of does it their own way, which can be complicated. Kathleen, do we have a chat question?
Yes, the question was just asking about if you need people to testify for the blue envelope bill.
Oh, yes, absolutely. We can talk a little bit more about the specific bills coming up, but that is a great bill that we absolutely can use some help for. It allows, you know, an autistic driver to hand over an envelope if they're pulled over in a traffic stop. And on that envelope, it identifies not just that they have autism, but some of maybe some of the accommodations they need when they are in that situation. So it's been a successful program in Connecticut. We're excited about potentially, there's a great coalition already formed, and Advocates for Autism in Massachusetts have been very involved with it, and Elise, Livy, and Kanji working really, really hard on that bill. So definitely reach out if you're interested. Okay, so like I said, following up, we'll let you know if there are any tricky you know, pieces to the registration, like you need to be there early to sign up. But most of the time you're able to sign up online for either in person or virtual. And when you go through the sign up process, you'll just need to know the bill numbers, and then it'll probably ask you, are you testifying in support of or opposition? So all of our bills you'd be, you know, in support of. So the other thing that has been really powerful for testimony is setting up panels. And on the registration, it may ask you, are you going to be a part of a panel? And I think the panels are really powerful if you can coordinate with your panel members really well beforehand. Because what this allows you to do is you maybe go up as a set of 3, or I think you can do a 2-person or a 4-person panel as well. But what you can do is coordinate your testimonies so that you don't feel like you have to get every single important part about the bill into your testimony. You can kind of share, like if I'm talking about workforce, maybe I'm going to focus on what it takes to be a DSP, and you know, what kind of being a caregiver and a DSP to my son looks like. And then someone else in the panel might talk about the rate of pay and how low it is and what that means for the DSP, that they have to work multiple jobs, and you know, what that means. And then someone else can take a different stand, you know, or maybe you have a provider, a DSP themselves, family member. So these panels can be really powerful if we because it for one, you don't have to worry about hitting everything in your testimony. 2, you can weed out the duplications, and as a panel be really impactful. So, you know, we try to set up panels through the ARC, but certainly you can do these on your own as well. But if you're interested in learning more or joining a panel and working with us around coordinating your testimony, definitely let me know. And then for written testimony, which is also really important. So, you know, just I think in terms of the oral testimony is powerful, but after the hearing goes, you know, people need to keep learning more, right? Because they're getting hit with many, many bills during the hearing. So being able to submit more written testimony on the specific bill and issue is really important. What I like to do is collect a packet of testimony and submit it together. So if you're emailing me about testimony, I may ask you, is it okay if I include it in a packet? And you know, that way we're like really showing, hey, there's a dozen people that, you know, want to submit this written testimony. So, and we'll talk a little bit more about like setting up written testimony too. Okay, so this is what I was talking about earlier about kind of how long the process takes, right? So we have to have patience, but we have to be persistent. So don't forget about it after you testify. Keep following up with your rep and senator. You know, this is when, you know, the relationship that you have with your rep and senator becomes really, really important. We need them to make our priorities, our top bills, their top bills. You can take out your testimony and send it or resend it to your rep and senator and say, you know, this bill has been very important to me. I testified. And, you know, if you can you please write a letter to the chairs of the committee that this bill is in front of, and tell them that it's important to you, it's important to your constituents, and to please pass it favorably. So there's a lot that your rep and senator can do if they're not on the committee, or if they're on the committee, you can continuously remind them of the importance of passing this bill out favorably. But not just passing the bill out favorably, because then we know it's important that they stay with it. They follow the bill's process and they continue to advocate for it when it gets to the next committee. And then when it comes to that crunch time, when there's so many bills that need to get through and need to get the attention of Ways and Means, that they're right there with it at the top of their priority list. Okay, the other thing you can do is come to the State House. You can drop fact sheets, enlist family and friends. Those are our powerful weapons that come really more towards the end of the session. So talking about preparing testimony, just oral testimony, it's so important that you keep it to 2 to 3 minutes. And, you know, I just always am so surprised at how many people don't time their testimony and they're going over 4 minutes, over 3 minutes. And it gets uncomfortable. It gets uncomfortable because the chairs of that committee have to cut you off. And I don't think they want to do that. You know, they don't want to have to interrupt you, especially if you're in the middle of something, you know, personal or emotional. They don't want to have to cut you off. So sometimes they'll, you know, not cut you off, but they know they need to set the precedent that nobody should be going past 3 minutes. And certainly I've been in hearings where the chairs just let it go. But I'd say, you know, just really keep an eye on keeping it short. If you're on a panel and you know that other areas are getting covered and you don't have to give, you know, a ton of detail, a 2-minute testimony can be really powerful too. I mean, the goal here is to be concise, to really, you know, talk about the issue, connect your story, whatever you're there to talk about, connect it to the bill. I often say, you know, use some of those powerful keywords in your testimony, and talk about the why, you know, what is the need for this bill? And, you know, really, you're going to start it by thanking the chairs and the committee for the opportunity to be there. You state your name, if you have an affiliation. If you don't, that's fine. Just maybe your personal connection to the issue. Always state the name of the bill and the number, just so everyone is clear what you're testifying on. And again, connect it, stay concise, use some keywords, and then you know, why, and that continued support. So any questions coming up? I see something in the chat again, but on really forming this. Okay. And again, I said that this is sort of the template, but like, this is individualized. You can do whatever you want. You can make it different. But this just kind of helps things stay in a structure, right? So other tips is to time yourself beforehand, to speak slowly and really emphasize your key points. You don't have to go into too much detail or personal history, but that information can definitely be there in the written testimony. You know, if you're talking about the issue of workforce for your loved one who has autism and intellectual disabilities, you don't have to go into back when he was diagnosed or, you know, any real history. You just need to really connect it to now. I always try to, you know, it's hard because you're giving, you know, you're in front of the committee. It can be a little scary. But let yourself be emotional about the issue, you know, let that come through in your voice. It helps to practice your testimony in front of other people, even if it feels dumb, to do that beforehand so that you can hear yourself, you can hear where you might stumble. And then, you know, I would say, like, if you haven't testified before, you know, really the chairs and the committee are they're so kind. No one is there to make you feel like you've done something wrong or to, you know, be too judgmental on any way that you present your testimony. As a matter of fact, I feel like the chairs are just so supportive, and they do really want to hear from you. So go into it with that idea. But believe me, I understand. I think my first time I testified, way back when my kids were babies, I was working on a newborn screening federal legislation. And I had to go to DC, and I brought my very young daughter with me. And I remember thinking I was bringing her to, like, have a sibling impact, but it was really just to, like, comfort me to have her sitting next to me. So I get it. It can be intimidating. But I'll say this legislature is really very wonderful. And I've had 10 years plus experience with them. So, so again, if you come in person, be prepared to wait. The legislators are all taken out of turn. So when you get there, you'll see a docket of the kind of agenda for the day, or it may actually be up on the website in advance. So you can kind of see where your bill falls. But that really doesn't mean, if your bill is listed second, that you're going to be, going within the first hour of the hearing, because it really depends on how many legislators are there to testify for their bills. So if a legislator comes, but his bill is listed last, it doesn't matter. He goes to the top, or she. So just, like I said, be prepared for a longer day. And then also be prepared that it might move quicker. Like there were a few bills listed for healthcare finance that no one showed up for. So I kind of jumped quickly through those bills when I was waiting the other day. If you are hybrid, I want to talk a little bit about hybrid. I think it's just been such a great option. It started during COVID, and they've been able to keep it. They have really set it up beautifully at the State House. So the committee is, sitting in front of the room, obviously facing the people who are testifying. But the video display of the hybrid testifiers is huge, and it's facing them. So it sort of feels like you're right in the room. When I was in the room, I was watching the folks testify. It was really powerful. They're on big screen, very clear audio. So it's a great option, and it allows people from all over to go ahead and testify. So I still am in that mindset of, like, it's more powerful to be in person. I'm going to be in person, but I'm at that point where I think maybe either one is equally as powerful. So if you are on a hybrid, make sure you stay muted with your camera off. I've noticed a lot of people have their camera on through the whole hearing, and what ends up happening is their picture can be up there, for a really long time. You don't need to be up there. You just want to come on and be on when it's your turn. And then if you're in the hearing room, just be really, cognizant of how distracting even a little bit of noise can be if someone is testifying. So I have to yell at Charlie Fisk about that all the time. But also it's important that you listen to other people's testimony on the same bill that you're testifying for. I think it helps educate you. And also, if you're up there testifying, you might be able to say something like, as was said, or, reinforcing what I just heard so-and-so say. It makes you seem really tuned in as well, and can be really good for reinforcing other people's testimony. Okay. So this is, again, just kind of setting up your written testimony, which, you can use as the template for your oral testimony as well. But, obviously your oral testimony is going to be a little less formal. But when you do address the chairs, I think it is important to thank them for their time, for the opportunity to come before them. But here's how I set up my written testimony. I put the date, I put the chairs of the committee and which committee it is, the name of the bill, the date of the hearing. I put the numbers of the bills, and then how I submitted it via email to the staff person. Now, if you go on the website and the hearing page, you will see a staff email for both the House and the Senate. And so you can make sure you get that correct email to send it. You can also always send your testimony to me. And like I said, I put them in a big packet and send them as one. And then just always make sure you include your full name, your full address, and your contact information. Oh, you know what I forgot to mention too, is the issue of photographs, because I think that it can be really powerful to submit a photo. And if you go and visit your legislator, I think bringing photos is really important. And, or, obviously of your family, but if you're a self-advocate, if you're, bringing your loved one with you, even better. But photos are great. But when you're testifying, I think sometimes they can be a little distracting. So, I've seen people come with photos and they give it to the committee as they sit down to, testify. And then the committee is passing the photos along and they're a little bit distracted by looking at the photos. And to be honest, you got 3 minutes, you want their full attention. And sometimes when I've done it in the past, like sent around a photo, I think I did it during Nikki's Law, I got distracted because I was watching them look at my photos and I was like sort of half distracted by that. So my point is, go ahead and send the photo in with written testimony. Or if you are really good and you want to get like a foam poster board to bring with you, and I don't have a foam poster board, but you could have that sitting on the table with you. That's kind of a nice way to show your loved one or the person you're kind of there to advocate for. So that I was going to say that. And
Or there are a couple of
oh yeah,
statements. And so Melissa just wanted to know about the desired length for the written testimony.
Oh, that's a great question. Yeah. So this is where we can definitely put more information, because really it's amazing to me how little you can fit in a 3-minute oral testimony. So I would still try to keep it, no longer than 3 pages, because the committee staff has a lot to read. And, if you have some really interesting research that you want to attach, again, if you have photos, if you just have background that you think is important that, you weren't able to, give during oral testimony, definitely attach those things. I think media articles that we can attach to our testimony is great. And then, we try to find, is this bill function, implemented in another state, and do we want to attach any information about that? So I think attachments are great. I would really try to keep it, to under 3 pages. More isn't always best, unless you have something really interesting to share. Some of our bills,
sorry.
go ahead. I was going to say some of our bills we don't have a lot of research on some of these bills, so if you do come across something like that, it's sometimes worth attaching. Go ahead.
No, Cynthia just made a comment around folks being really nervous about in-person testimony. I know you talked about the hybrid model, but she was questioning or suggesting, is there any possibility of submitting video?
Yeah, that's a good question. So that has been trickier. We did have a few committees allow that during COVID, but I think they're moving away from that now, submitting video. I think if you have a short like iPhone video that you can email to your legislator, that's great. I think that works really, really well. Or a link to YouTube, if you're able to link a video to YouTube. I think that works really well too, but I don't think it works as well for testimony. Sorry to say, but for written testimony, if you want to send written testimony with a link to a video, I think that would work. But in the room, I think they're looking for people who are either live on hybrid or in person. So hopefully that helps. Any other questions on giving I'm going to stop share for a minute because the rest of it is more advocacy related. other people's experiences that have been either good or nerve-wracking? I know.
Maura,
Yeah.
if I may, because I haven't post-COVID testified, but one thing that I found helpful is Maura, you talk about like really importance of limiting the oral testimony to 2 to 3 minutes because of all the reasons you mentioned. Do they still have, there used to be like a clock, so it was a very helpful indicator for, oh gosh, I might want to skip or condense my next 2 paragraphs, and it helped keep to time.
Mhm.
Is that still something that they have there? I see it as an accommodation for me to
Yeah,
keep.
well, that's interesting because I can't look at it because it makes me nervous. But yeah, well, most of the committees have a running clock. Some of them have a dinger, so it actually dings at 3 minutes, and then they can re-ding it, as it goes, which I think is useful because some people just don't stop, and they could go on and on and on forever. So yeah, I mean, if it goes off while you're testifying, certainly you don't have to like immediately stop. You can say, you could finish your sentence and say, oh, wrapping up now, and that's fine, and no one will fault you for that. But yeah, it's things like not getting started right away when you sit down, those kind of things to save time. Because really, I do feel a little bit bad for some of the legislators. It's a really long day to be focused and to hear so much information. And to just keeps coming. It keeps coming with each bill, and some of the stories are, and it's hard to hear all the problems that people are facing. And so, but they have to, and I get it. But so just not, making sure we're not elongating or wasting time, that we're getting right to the issue. Anybody else have anything to share?
Yes, you said something interesting. Oh,
Yeah.
sorry. I'll
Oh, go ahead, Joss, and then we'll do it, Lana.
just that you you separated the written testimony from the oral, and I found that interesting because I always thought it was like, you do the oral testimony, and then maybe in the follow-up email, you basically have some supplementary material. Like, remember, I testify at this hearing. Here's some fact sheets I want you to look at. You're suggesting there could actually be 2 different things.
I am, but honestly, one or the other is also very effective. Like if you just do oral testimony, that's fine. But some people are definitely more comfortable with just submitting the written. For most impact, I like to do a short oral testimony, that really kind of hits on like one really kind of powerful personal story, and maybe like 3 really important details about the bill, and then give a much more comprehensive written testimony. But like I'll show you one of my testimonies. I don't know, but I'll let Alana talk in a second. Where did I put this one? I think I started it with oh, yes, this opportunity to provide written testimony to accompany my oral testimony, right? So that just gives them the clarity of, I testified in front of you, remember me? And here's my written testimony. And one of the things that, I do like to be a little less formal in my oral testimony, but much more formal in my written testimony, making sure I give, the specifics of the bill, maybe mention the number of co-sponsors, things like that. But also it's nice to make an impact when you're in the room. We're talking about so many serious things. And so when I was giving my healthcare finance oral testimony last week, I think it was the week before, I said, this bill is like a mountain for advocates to climb, I mentioned the song Ain't No Mountain High Enough, and tried to get a little chuckle out of them with Donna Summer's song, because I want them to remember it, and I want them to stick with them. But yeah, so I'd say you can do either, both, and you can tweak them a little bit differently, or they can be the same, but it's good to have it on file as written testimony as well.
Thanks.
All right, sorry, that was a long answer. Alana, go ahead.
So I have to submit my testimony when I sign up. So do I sign up now?
That's a great question. Okay, so the hearings that are coming up for bills that are important to the ARC, currently there's only one hearing that's available to sign up for, which is our transportation hearing, which is for the blue envelope, which is about autistic drivers. But soon, in the next couple days, I would imagine we're going to see the hearing for our workforce rate increase bill be posted, maybe even today. And then you would sign up if you're going to testify either in person or hybrid. The written testimony, though, you don't have to send in right away. Really, you can send in written testimony to the committee anytime. But I like to get it in right after the hearing because it's really fresh to them. It also makes an impact. Like we had this hearing and wow, we received 35, pieces of individual written testimony. So that's a good reason to get the written testimony in quickly. You never know when the committee is going to vote on the bill. So getting it in, within a couple weeks of the hearing is probably the best idea.
I'm actually going to Paris the week after next. So yeah, so I would probably like to submit my testimony before I leave.
You can
It's for the supported decision-making bill.
Oh, sure. Okay. Yeah, why don't we take that offline? If you email me, we can definitely get it into the committee chairs before then and the committee staff member.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks, Alana. I think Raquel has her hand up.
Hi, good morning, everyone.
Hi.
I'm happy to be here. What about the parents want to do it, but they need translation? Do you guys provide translation for parents that they just want to speak in the language, the native language?
Kathleen, do you know what they do for translation?
I know that they have instructions related to accommodations and they do ask for, and I don't know if this is for each or it's dependent on a specific time in order to meet those accommodations.
Yeah, they may.
So that I do know.
That will be the same if the person wants to speak in sign language. So to do sign language, that will be so. Because I have few parents, they always want to do that, but they don't speak English and they just like, okay, how do I do it? So that's a good question to find out.
Absolutely.
So please let me know.
Yeah, I still think going through the accommodations link there, and it used to be Carl, and I know that he did a lot with the sign language and the captioning, but I think he would also be the person to figure out translation. But yeah, we should look into that. So yeah. I'll make sure we have a clear answer on that. I think Carl is retiring, so I don't know who his.
I know.
Oh, is that in that case they can bring a family member or somebody that they can be there with them in that room. Because what I found in this process is that when family present their own process or their own situation and they want to speak out, they feel more confident when they express themselves in the language that they feel. And sometimes if they want to cry, it's hard when you're speaking in another language and you don't want to let the emotion to involve in what you've been saying. So and they just feel better. So I don't know, it's something about speaking in your language that you feel more better when you want to say something particular, very important when it's that case to is in case it's something related to them and they want to say why this is important for us and for others.
No, I absolutely agree. I think that it's most powerful that way. So yes, bringing a family member, but also, if they don't have someone available, the State House should have some accommodations.
Yeah, and just to follow up on that too, it does, the accessibility form does differentiate specifically even within the interpreting services, whether it's ASL, whether it's English, whether it's another accommodation, and also an other. So that's where, so it would be within that accommodation. And but with that 2-week sort of giving them some time to meet the need.
Right. Oh, great. I'm glad they're doing that.
Maura, I'm sorry, and another question related with that, when the parents, they are, for example, illegal, or they are in a situation with the legal process that they don't want to, be afraid to come forward and do that, how do we explain that nothing had to do with this, but you going to a place where it's a lot of authority and you have this situation and nobody's going to care about that, only what you're going to say, because that's another issue too. The parent, they're afraid to come forward just because they think that somebody's going to be against them with the legal process, stuff like that.
Oh, that's such a hard situation. I think you're right, though. You're on track to say to them that there's all they're doing is sharing information, and advocacy has very little to do with their legal standing or anything that might be going on personally with them. If they're not comfortable submitting their full name and address, they can still come and testify, and they don't have to submit anything with their name and address on it. But I do think, obviously working with your legislator is important in connecting with them, with them knowing you're in their district. So yeah, that's a trickier situation to put people at ease on. I saw some very powerful testimony last week from direct support professionals, who were talking about working 3 jobs. This one DSP was talking about how she has 3 kids and she works generally 60 hours, sometimes 70 hours a week, and that she's never been able to go to even one of her kids' school conferences because she can't take any time off from work. And, I have to say that the entire committee was just like, oh, she makes $15.35 an hour. So these are the really powerful messages that that personal testimony can bring. And I know it can be really hard for people to come in and make time. She made time for this, over, taking a day for her family, for her kids. So that was incredibly powerful. But anybody else have any other questions? We're going, I think, a full hour today, I guess. Anything to share?
There was just some in the chat, just some question around pre-registration requirements for in-person. I think you talked a little bit about that, and it might differ, right?
Right. Sorry, I'll reiterate that. Just when the signups come up on the website, they'll be different depending on the committee, but most of the time they'll allow you to sign up right there on the website to be in person to testify, or to do it hybrid. And the other thing is, if there's if you're struggling with the website, just let me know. We can email the committee staff directly and say we have someone that wants to sign up and is struggling with the website. So, and it's not a big deal at all. We can call those folks, and they really are very accommodating. They want to make sure everything goes smooth on the day of the hearing, though. So they do get a little like, if you set up a panel but you don't have the name, they're going to call you. They'd be like, what is this person's name? Because they really want it to go smooth. And I was going to say one other thing about hybrid testimony, just to keep in mind. Sometimes they don't send you the link to the actual hearing until the day of. So it's a little nerve-wracking. You sign up and then you're like, well, how do I do it? There's no Zoom link. But then either the day before or the morning of, you'll usually get that Zoom link. I mean, at least that's how it was happening. Maybe they're getting better and sending it out earlier. But it usually comes from this one person, Seamus, at the website. I mean, at the State House. So don't get nervous if you haven't heard. Yeah.
Maura, Hi, do you know, do they live stream the hearings so people who aren't testifying can observe?
Yes, they do, and they record them. And so you can watch them back, but you can also live stream watch them. So that's really helpful. And I think it's just become so much more of a public process since the pandemic, which is really one of the benefits. And it's also great. Remember, if you are doing this, if you're taking the time out of your day to testify, whether it's hybrid or in person, let your rep and senator know you're doing this. And sometimes it's great if they can come and testify too. If they're really behind you on this bill and they're a real partner with you, then ask them to come and testify in support of the bill, even if they're not the sponsor of the bill. And if they can't do that, write a letter of support. But just let them know you're taking the time to do this and going in and how important it is to you. Anybody else? All right, well, I have a few extra slides, but I'm gonna let them go because it's already 5 minutes of. I just want to remind people to reach out to me or Kathleen if you have any questions that come up along the way. Like I said, it's going to happen quickly. The hearings are going to come, and we're going to, put out information on our notes from the ARC and on our social media. And so if you go ahead and follow the links and you try to sign up and you have any problems, just let us know. But otherwise, you can also coordinate with me if you have an interest in being on a panel, or if you want to send me your written testimony directly. So those
Can
are.
I send you my written testimony
Yes, Eleni,
directly?
you absolutely can. And then I know the hearing that you're looking forward to isn't until June 27th. But
Right.
we can get your written testimony in prior to that and have it all set for the hearing.
All right. And where do I sign up on the State House website?
I think that Liz said that maybe you're going to be on a panel, right, Liz? For the MDDC, or
I think so. That's what we had talked about earlier. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're
Oh, I
working to
didn't
run
know
on
that.
it. What's
I
that?
didn't know that one. I
Yeah,
did not.
We can talk about that offline. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and for supported decision making, we have a large coalition, so there's going to be multiple panels, and Jonathan's shaking his head because we're going to be offering some more of these sessions for supported decision making for anyone that wants to come on and just really get some additional help with testimony, and any other bills we're willing to do that for as well. If there's a bill that's like feels complicated to understand, just let us know. We'll walk you through it and definitely get out the fact sheets to you. Kathleen's been doing a great job whipping those into shape. So I think they're all pretty much all ready. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for your time today. Thanks, Marie. And
Thank you.
enjoy the beautiful weather. Happy June. And hopefully we'll see you at the State House.
All right. Bye.